it seems to me what's important about neoliberalism is that it doesn't manage directly. It manages from within the soul. That is to say, it makes each of us into specks of human capital who must appreciate their value in order to survive. And by appreciate, I mean increase their value in order to survive. And so the idea of being managed directly seems to me to refer much more to the immediate post-Fordist period, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and it seems to me we are entering a period, I see this in my students, perhaps this has more to do with the United States than some other places. They don't need to be told or managed directly in order to be extremely instrumental in relationship to their education, their futures, their choice of a mate, their idea about how to do things on a particular timeline. It's a very internalized set of norms about how to survive and thrive in a neoliberal fashion. So, to be sure, everything is managed, but I wonder if it's increasingly managed at the level of internalized norms rather than through the direct application of managers.
But there's also another aspect of the managerial. It's the government's actual managing. Because governments, what they tell us now is, let us just manage the crisis. Let us just manage the economy. You worry about your own lives.
There we have a different problem. So let me try to describe that problem. Absolutely. What we have here is a notion of supposedly democratic government that increasingly understands itself as a manager, but even more than a manager, I would say we call it the CEO version of government, which is the chief executive officer, the top of the pyramid in business. So what does that tell us? That we have a business model of politics, which Foucault again had a word for, governmentalization. It wasn't a very lovely word, but he was talking about the moment when the state is transformed from fundamentally a legislative and even administrative state to a state on the business model. And what's important about that is, of course, it's a form of de-democratization. And when you have a managerial state, when you have a state that understands itself as the chief executive officer of the business of the nation, it models itself on business, and that means each of us is supposed to be doing our little particular tasks. Well, the state takes care of politics, and that is the evacuation of democracy from a democratic state. And that is, to me, something I think that is happening in every Euro-Atlantic state. That is, every state that formally understands itself as a democracy is undergoing that form of de-democratization.